Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you had to switch. Okay.
You just wait for him to.
Okay, great. He's up there.
Oh, he's up there?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for attending a regularly scheduled meeting of the Bangor Business and Economic Development Committee. I am your chair, Councillor Leonard. Around the table, we have fellow committee members, Councillors Balloon, Councillor Carson, Councillor Fish, and Councillor Mallor is on Zoom with us. Also around the table, we have Council Chair Hawes, we have Councillor Dean, and we have Councillor Beck. And we also have our BED Director Ann Krieg with us here today. We have a few agenda items that we're going to go over. The first one that we'll be going over is a few items under Land Development Code, some proposed changes, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Anya Collette, our planning officer, is here to review some proposed changes.
So the first item that I want to talk about is just follow up on our last discussion about changes to the major and minor arterial definitions. You all had just wanted to know more so like which lots would be affected. So I did include maps in your packets that showed zoning along Ohio Street. And then also a couple of the lots that would be affected by this. They're currently legally non-conforming lots. The majority of those are working farms because we don't allow active farm sales unless you're on a major arterial. And then also churches in certain districts. Churches are limited to major arterials, and we do have one church on Ohio that's in a zone that would limit it to that. And then also I discussed a proposed use on Ohio that currently wouldn't be able to go there because it's a recreation center, which is also limited to major arterials. So those are the main things that are affected. And then I did just list out, you know, the different uses that are limited to major arterials in all of our zoning districts. So are there any questions on any of that?
Councillor Fish.
For the farms, I know there'll be they're grandfathered. So if there's a sale, even though it's non-conforming, it will perpetuate to be able to be allowed to farm even to the next owner.
Yeah, it's non-conformities transfer to owners. Yeah.
Any other questions? Councillor Dean.
I think we asked this last time, but there really isn't any negative to this change, is there? Can you think of anything that could possibly change? Something that would not, you know, better their zone?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, you know, from a planning standpoint that it's a negative. You just have to look at, you know, the uses that would be allowed on Ohio if this were to change. Looking at these, I don't think that they're problematic. You know, but I would leave that up to you since you'll be voting on it if you think that's problematic or not. But the planning board did also review this and they didn't see a problem with it, so. And I should clarify, sorry, the working farms, they're not exactly non-conforming, but if they wanted to do farm sales, they couldn't do them currently because they're not on the major arterial.
Councillor Fish.
What do you mean farm sales?
Well, I can't remember the exact use. I might have listed here. Oh, sales of farm products. So if they wanted to sell directly to somebody, they couldn't do that on their farm because they're not on a major arterial.
Councillor Balloon.
Just to clarify, so with this change, they will become conforming, right? These properties will become.
They would be able to sell farm products on their farms. Yeah.
Anyone else on this item? I found the changes to be acceptable, and of course, I'm always happy to be on the side of the planning board, so it's always good to hear. Unless there's any other, do we need to make a motion on this item, or are we doing them all together?
I guess
Separate. Yeah.
Okay, could I get a motion on this item?
So moved.
Thank you, second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Unless doubted, that will move on.
So the next item is a new proposed change. It's fairly simple, but what we're proposing is to remove the requirement for off-street parking to be buffered from lots that are in the government institutional service zone. And the reasoning for that is mainly because GNISD is somewhat of a more intensive zone, has a lot more intensive uses like hospitals, offices, some more commercial uses. And we didn't really see that it was necessary exactly to have that buffer like you see with when it's adjacent to a residential property. You definitely want to buffer parking. And this does present a barrier to some commercial development in the city. So we just wanted to bring that forward for consideration.
Thoughts or comments or questions? Seems relatively straightforward. The only thought I had in mind was maybe inform the parking committee on this for their agendas coming up, but it's a relatively minor issue. So I don't think it's really that significant. Could I get a motion on this item?
I move forward the buffer requirement request.
A motion and a second.
May I have a question?
Oh, yes, Councilor Mallard.
I'm a little confused. Tell me if I'm going crazy or not. Now, the St. Joseph's 900 Broadway, would not need a buffer zone between the apartment complex on the opposite side of the street from that? Is that right? Because I know they have to have a buffer now, and they've cut down most of the trees in the buffer, which was against the code, but they've managed to get away with it. So now you're going to let them take all of them down?
Oh, so first, St. Joe's is in the GNISD zone, and where they have parking, where that's adjacent to a residential district, they still have to have a buffer between their parking and residential areas. But for somebody, say somebody's in the S&PS zone, a commercial zone, and they put in a parking lot and they're next to somebody in the GNISD zone, they don't have to put a buffer between their parking and that GNISD lot. So
who's enforcing the buffer zones?
that would be code enforcement.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other final thoughts? I know it's been moved on, but I think I'd get one more round. Nope. Okay. Right.
All right, so these next items are somewhat more substantial. I don't know if you all had heard, but the state recently passed a bunch of laws related to housing and making housing more affordable. The three ones that are the primary topic here are LD 1829, 427, and 997. 1829 was the biggest bill that made a lot of changes to things like density and ADUs and things like that. 427 basically made it so that municipalities can't require more than one space per unit and have to allow shared parking agreements. And then 997 allows residential uses in commercial districts. We are still waiting on rulemaking for these three laws, but based on the draft rulemaking that was released, I think it was in October, we have a sense of, what the requirements are going to be. So we have started drafting those changes, and we do plan to bring you that draft next month. But I just wanted to introduce you to what's coming and how this affects our ordinances. So for LD 1829, I'm going to go down the list, but basically they require that we allow ADUs on both multifamily lots and single family. Currently, our ordinance limits it to single family, so we would have to change that. And then also, if someone's using the affordable housing density bonus, the maximum height for them is increased by 14 feet. We allow that bonus in pretty much all of our multifamily zones and our mixed commercial residential zones. So that would affect those. And then when LD 2003 came along a couple of years ago, they, increased the required density or maximum density per lot, but they had all these caveats. For example, like if you were outside the growth boundary, you could add up to 2 units, but if there were already 2 units, you couldn't add any more. And LD 1829 came through and kind of got rid of some of those stipulations and made it more straightforward. So now they're saying all residential districts have to allow at least 3 units per lot. So, and that's if you're outside the growth boundary or inside it. If you're inside the growth boundary, you have to allow 4 units. And whereas LD 2003 said you can require, more lot area per unit for those 4 units, LD 1829 came and said you have to allow 4 units if you're on a 5,000 square foot lot, and that's it. And it did say you can require, after those 4 units, you can require 5,000 square feet of lot area per subsequent units. But that's a pretty significant change, and so we will have to change, URD 1 and URD 2 in those zones and others. It does for lots that are outside the growth boundary, and whether or not they're on public water and sewer, those density requirements are relaxed as far as let me try to explain it well, because it gets a little confusing. So we can't require more than 5,000 square feet for 2 dwellings if they're outside the growth boundary, but they have public water and sewer. And then inside the growth boundary, if they don't have public water and sewer, we have to go by the minimum lot size dictated by the state for septic. So it gets a little confusing, but we're just going to use the state language, I think, for the code when it comes to that. So are there questions on that before I move on? Just want to make sure I explain that well.
Do you have any idea how many properties?
A few.
Pretty much all of them.
Yeah, everybody, all districts will be affected by these
Yeah.
changes. Yeah.
So very significant. Any more?
Just to put it in perspective, say you have a small 1,000 square foot home. You're allowed 2 units in that plus an ADU?
Well, if
What
you're
saying?
inside the growth boundary and you have a 5,000 square foot lot, you can do up to 4 units on that lot.
Yeah. Does that allow for expansion, or are they allowing you to take a small unit and break it into 4? Are there any stipulations for the size of the unit?
No.
Yeah, we have setback.
Building code.
Yeah, minimum parking requirements, we have 1 space per unit, and maximum impervious area. Those kinds of dimensional standards still remain. But
Question.
Councilor.
On the parking spaces, if they have federal funding, is it still 1 space per unit? Because I believe federally, wasn't it 1.5? If you had any federal funding?
no, there's no kind of requirement like that. And actually in our code
No,
for,
no, not in our code, federally, if you were going to build an apartment complex and you had federal monies, you have to have 1.5 spaces per unit.
no, you had that question a while back and I did look into that and we couldn't find that requirement anywhere, so.
Well, that's why we turned down 1 years ago, but I thought maybe it's changed. I'll check with Washington then. Thank you.
It has.
Any other thoughts on this? Yeah, so this is a significant change. Well, I have a lot to say on it, but I'll allow us to on because I actually want to talk more about 997 and 427. But any other final thoughts on this? And you said it's going to come next month?
Our draft changes, we're striving for next month, so.
Okay,
yeah.
no, I understand. It's probably going to take a bit of work from you. Okay, yeah, but let's move on to 997. Yeah, no, 427, my apologies.
Yep, before I got there though, just wanted to cover a few more things. So LD 1829 also required that planning board members and boards of appeal have to attend training on land use planning. MMA offers a course on this that we regularly send to planning board members, and now they have to do that. So we will be asking for a certificate from them. And then for projects where you're creating 3 or more dwelling units, in the past that fell under state subdivision. So we had to send things to planning board. Now this law has said, first of all, if it changes it from 3 to 5, so you don't meet subdivision until you're adding 5 or more units. And then it said you can't require planning board approval if you're creating 4 or fewer dwelling units. So as a result of that, we would be proposing to just require staff review when they're creating 3 or 4 dwelling units. And then they wouldn't go to planning board until they're creating 5 or more.
Is this training for planning board members available right now, or is that something that we're gonna have to wait closer to the compliance date for?
It is available, well, they have one coming up, I think it's December 9th. So
We'll have to check with the planning board probably tomorrow to see if anyone's amenable to that. Yes.
Good question. So the training itself, is it covered as part of our MMA membership, or is it a extra thing we can pay to send people?
I think we may have to pay, but we do, every year when we do our budget, we account for these educational things for our planning board and HPC members, so it's covered under the budget.
Okay, and so the city takes care of it, so the individual.
Yes, yes.
I didn't want to scare away any
No,
useful potential members.
no, yeah.
Okay, but that will give us, I mean, we're gonna have to plan ahead for that for an appeals board member and a planning board member. Thank you for that, Anya. Anything else before we move on? Is this something that we need action on, or is it
I don't think you can need an action.
I didn't think so. Okay, LD 427.
So this one's not a huge change for us. We do currently allow people to have parking agreements if they don't have off-site parking on their own property. But we just have to change the wording a little bit according to the law. Currently, we require the parking spaces to be located within 0.25 miles of the development site. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I think we said 500 feet, and the state law requires us to allow up to 0.25 miles away. So we have to increase that distance out. And then also we limit it to lots that the owner owns or they're in a lease agreement with. The state law is more less restrictive on that, so we just have to change that language there. Not limit them to that. So.
I have a few thoughts on this, but any other counselors before me? I think this is actually going to significantly affect the parking district one, I believe, quite heavily and exacerbate it more. So this should be absolutely brought up to the parking committee as soon as possible. Or next one is going to affect the block of strategic planning. Obviously, the other districts, we haven't met those thresholds yet, but that district one's the problem. Okay.
And then LD 997, so that one requires us to allow residential units in commercial zones. The state law didn't say all commercial zones, it just said commercial zones. So we did talk with legal about that, and their opinion was that if we just have a few commercial zones that allow residential, that would meet it. However, the draft rulemaking that came out said all, so we're gonna wait till they come out with the official rulemaking change before we propose a change. But currently we have quite a few commercial zones that allow residential, so we would already be in compliance if we don't have to do it in all of them. So are there any questions on that?
Any other questions, comments? I mean, this does give us a lot more flexibility, but that was my initial question. Certain amounts, so okay, I guess we will stand by on that. Anything else you want to present to us on?
On those law changes, I just have my last item
Okay,
there.
yeah.
So, okay. So this is just to give you an overview of, the planning division. I know some of you already know a lot of these things, but basically we're a 2-division department. We have Matthew Altiero over here, who's our planning analyst. Our day-to-day tasks involve land development review, zone change applications, historic preservation applications, because we staff the planning board, the Historic Preservation Commission, and the Pinjajawat Commission. Pinjajawat Commission doesn't meet very often because they only meet when there's a land development proposed in the overlay zone, which is basically the marsh, and then a lot of the lots that are right around it, kind of bounded by Essex Street and Stillwater. And so they make recommendations to the planning board for developments that come in. So they're more of an advisory commission. And then we just meet with people on a regular basis to talk about, you know, the code and permitting requirements and things like that, through pre-app meetings, and we, you know, guide them through the process of doing their applications before they get to those boards and commissions. Additionally, we do long-range planning, like the comprehensive plan, that was last passed in 2023, and work on implementing that plan. We also do other things, like we were on the steering committee for the climate action plan, and we're implementing that as well. And then also, you know, we do look at historic preservation planning as well. So I just went through, you know, some of the things that we're working on right now and looking at working on. You're already aware of a couple that I've just gone through. In addition, we are working on updating the historic preservation ordinance according to, you know, feedback that we've gotten over the past year. So we hope to bring that to you in the next few months. And then, you know, as part of implementing the comprehensive plan, the major part of that is updating our land development code, like I mentioned before. And so we are looking to getting the first draft of that this winter. And so we'll be reviewing that first draft at a staff level, working through any kinks, and then we'll bring you a kind of a revised draft to look at. And then, of course, after that, as we go through those drafts, there's going to be extensive public engagement on that. So, and then we have a couple grants, you know, that I've been working on over the past year or so, that kind of go towards implementing the climate plan and comp plan, working on installing bike racks around the city, doing some energy audits, municipal buildings. We're kind of in the midst of all that right now. Closing out the energy efficiency and conservation block grant to get an EV for general city use. We have that EV now. And then I'm going to be working on a guide for people on using that. And also the level 2 EV chargers at Pickering Square, those have been installed. So we're just kind of working on some closeout paperwork for that. We're working on a historic architectural survey through a grant from the state. And part of that, not just, it doesn't involve just surveys, but also it involves a presentation to developers and realtors about historic preservation. We're planning that for January. We do have the surveys done now, so that's almost finished. Also, we work with the Bees and Trees Committee as part of the city's Bee City designation to do public outreach. We're also working on drafting an integrated pest management plan that will apply to all the city departments that work with pesticides. And also, as part of our climate plan implementation, we're just working on public outreach and education about incentives available to people for energy efficiency and things like that. And then also doing outreach and education on our historic resources. We're really trying to push that out more. We're on the steering committee for a couple different plans that are happening right now, Complete Streets and Urban Forest Management Plan. And also, we are soon going to be working on a guide for other departments when they're coming up with their budget. You know, what are the incentives available for them for energy efficiency upgrades and things like that. So, are there any questions?
Yes, Councilor Beck.
Thank you for reminding us about the EV vehicle, because it's exciting that we have one now. I guess in the future, it'll be kind of interesting to hear if the city's had time to use it, to hear back kind of a cost differential about, you know, savings that were realized because of this vehicle versus a comparable gasoline vehicle, to form decision in the future about, you know, purchasing more EV vehicles if that's the direction we want to go.
Yeah, definitely would be interesting to see that. I can tell you from a just general statistical standpoint, I think the savings is 30 to 50% over the life of the vehicle as well.
Great.
Yeah.
More thoughts, comments, questions, or approvals and thanks? A lot. Looking forward to the development of it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have an overview, and I'll just give it again.
Thank you. Our Economic Development Officer, Rita Hernandez Smith, is here to give an overview of the economic development.
Good evening, everyone. Happy holidays. So this may seem a little redundant for all of the other counselors, but we wanted to make sure that you, Counselor Falloon and Counselor Carson, I will get to know you very quickly, and that you guys are up to speed in the work that we do regularly. And we wanted to take some time for that. So, and we look forward to working with both of you. So, the Economic Development Division is under Anne's team of Community and Economic Development. I lead the division. I am the Economic Development Officer. So I set the strategy and the vision for the team based on the Economic Development Plan of 2022. That is located on our website if you wanted to review that. But it's definitely a consistent reference in terms of the direction that we're going. We have our business development specialist, Brad Wall, who is mostly responsible for working with businesses, understanding the business's needs, outreach, support. However, Brad and I work very closely together. So any projects that I'm working on or that he's working on, we both work in tandem. So we both have full knowledge and can definitely talk through those projects. We operate under the Department of Economic Development, of Community and Economic Development, and what we do. So we talk about business support. Economic development is really, really broad and very exciting, very near and dear to my heart. We support businesses primarily. It's important that businesses understand that we, the City of Bangor Economic Development, are their first point of contact. Oftentimes, we can't directly provide support, but we do have an economic development ecosystem where we sit with the business, we understand what it is that they need, and then we provide them a connection to partners, whether that be retention of a workforce, marketing, operating, HR, finance functionality. We make sure that we hear and we understand and directly give them a warm connection to our partners. We manage, so we're property managers, the economic development team. And so that next bullet talks about city-owned property. As a City of Bangor, we own multiple properties and we own multiple parcels of land. With the properties that we currently own, we have tenants in those, and those tenants, we manage their leases, we manage revisions to their leases, we manage their regular support on a regular basis. We also manage, and it's a little bit of a different nuance, but we also manage some airport properties. So the airport owns properties, we manage those properties again, and really act as the property manager. Again, being that first point of contact, ensuring that the properties are safe and they're clean and they're maintained and those leases are up to date and so on. We are the managers of the foreign trade zone. So there was a reference to tariffs in the Finance Committee. The Foreign Trade Zone is a federal program, and there's a lot of details within it, but holistically, it's a program to offer our businesses in the region and beyond to be able to defer their tariffs. So if they are international exporters and importers, being part of our foreign trade zone will allow them to defer tariffs for the time that it's in the zone. It is a complex program, but beneficial nonetheless, especially in these times where a lot of businesses are incurring new tariffs or their tariffs are increasing. Higher education and international partnerships. So that was a big ask when I came on board to ensure that we had significant relationships with the University of Maine and Hudson University, as well as our community college. We have those. Oftentimes we go and speak. So it's important that we build a pipeline for economic developers moving forward. And so oftentimes we go and speak to those students to talk to them about the role of economic development, a life in the day of economic development. We also work with those universities to attract talent, to attract students to our region. Just recently, we signed an MOU with we facilitated a MOU agreement with Hudson University and the government of Aruba so that we could attract Aruban students here, and Hudson University would contribute a significant portion of their tuition to attract them here. As you know, as we attract different people here, we attract them to our region, hence broadening our economic development opportunities and scope, right? We want to attract people to our region. Oftentimes students will stay because they have experienced our region, they enjoy it, they have opportunity here. So we're working with those universities in that way, and also very present. Downtown business outreach and experience. So we work closely with Betsy Lundy and our team at the Downtown Bangor Partnership. It's important that in our outreach is across the city. However, our downtown area is definitely a focus, and we want to make sure that those businesses are in position to thrive and be successful and retain their position in downtown. So Brad and I oftentimes, we speak to those businesses on a regular basis. We go in and visit them. We want to make sure that they're in good standing. And it's important to continuously outreach to our businesses because we want to, again, make sure that we're top of mind when they're in a dilemma or they want to grow. They have opportunity to grow. They have new ideas. They can come and speak to us. Community cohesion and inclusive engagement. This is really important. I will speak as an individual resident. It's very important that we as a city are inclusive. It's one of the things that really attracted me to this region. And it's important that we show our different communities that we are a city of belonging. We're a city that support our different cultures. Just recently, we supported Bangor United. So that was an event that was hosted by the CHISPA organization. It was hosted at the library, but it brought a plethora of different cultures: Irish, Italian, natives of Maine, Spanish, Asian, Indian, and all these different cultures together, and really in an informative way at the library where there was different stations where people got to really learn about those different countries and those different cultures, and all around food and entertainment. And it was fantastic. And we supported it. We helped kick it off. And there was over 700 in attendance from the city. So that's something that's really important to us. Again, being present, economic development is really about the relationships that we build both locally, nationally, and internationally. And how do we build our economy and extend our economy by building those relationships? We are on several boards. It's important for us to be present and to be in the know, to have our ear to the ground in terms of what's happening. So we are on the Greater Bangor Chamber of Commerce board, Upstart Maine, Big Gig Entrepreneurship Networks, Green Drinks, and the International Economic Development Council Advisory Committee. So we are definitely present. We do go to a lot of community events, a lot of conferences locally and nationally and internationally as well. We attended the Farnborough Airport show with the Bangor Airport team, just again to show our presence, to familiarize people with the foreign trade zone, while the Bangor Airport familiarize people with the benefits of the Bangor Airport. I talked about higher education, again emphasizing our support of higher education in very creative ways. Airport and business outreach. So we remain active partners with the Bangor International Airport. We have monthly meetings to kind of understand what's happening in both campuses, if you will. We need to make sure that we are aligned with market forecasts, business outreach, and including support of small businesses. So oftentimes we have RFPs that are released, and we want to make sure that we do the proper outreach for our businesses so that they can reply to those RFPs and be kept in the midst of opportunity as well. And then again, just an underscore for local business support. We do this day in and day out. Brad is really phenomenal at this. He he sits with about 3 to 5 businesses a week, just again, understanding what it is that they need. Those meetings come from either outreach of us doing outreach or those businesses getting a real understanding of where their first point of contact and calling us and we schedule time with them. So what is ahead? Let me pause just a little bit. And does anybody have questions?
Yes, Councilor Beck.
So the internships,
Yes,
that's exciting.
Yes.
I remember the presentation that we had to
Yes.
see for the Foreign Train Zone
yes.
and the work they've done on that. And so I guess my question is this, and this is just my thinking, for as excited as they were and as challenged as they were, do you foresee them coming back to Bangor and looking for employment and staying in this community?
Absolutely. So I recently met with a bunch, and these were international Husson students. And these are students who are not used to, East Coast, Maine weather, and they loved the community so much. And each and every one of them said that they would entertain the idea of staying if they had the opportunity. Now, of course, and that's the work that we do, right? We need to make sure that businesses understand the pipeline that we have and the opportunity, because they could love a community all day long, but if they don't have the opportunity to sustain themselves and take care of their future families, then they would have to leave. But yes, absolutely.
And then the other thing I was gonna make mention of is the presence the department has in the community and beyond. Between Maine Biz and all the different trade shows, it seems like you see the city logo everywhere. And the response is overwhelmingly positive. But also the local business support, the idea that, as a community, that, if there's some kind of assistance needed to navigate our system in the city, that they can pick up the phone and get some help. Not a whole lot of communities offer that, at least, not our size. That's phenomenal that we have it, and that really attracts more business to our community, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate you saying that, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of hours, but it's important to us as a department, as a team, that we have face time, right? It's one thing to be, of course, we have to be behind the scene and we have to do the work that we do. And a lot of that is administration time, but we set aside significant number of hours a week to be out in the community. Like this week alone, we'll probably have a good 12 hours after hours being out in different events in the community.
Councilor Fish.
When you're 3 to 5 contacts of businesses that are either reaching out to you or you're reaching out with either, I would assume perhaps new interests in the Bangor region or businesses, as you said, that want to expand. That's a lot of contact a week. And we are seeing some businesses, but on the scale of 3 to 5 a week to what's actually happening in action, it seems like a small portion. What do you see as the biggest hurdle of more action as a result of those 3 to 5 contacts?
Meaning like an increase in how many we see per week? Or do you mean actually moving the needle for the?
Yeah,
Okay.
Is those 3 to 5 contacts actually resulting in action moving forward?
Well, this is the thing, we equip them with all they need to take that first action step. There is an onus on the business to actually do that. And oftentimes, I've worked with small businesses for over 20 years now. And the trick to that is to get a business to understand that you don't have to take it all on yourself, right? You are the visionary at a point in your business, probably like the 3-year mark, and you need to be able to have that right-hand person to support the business while you go out and continue ensuring that the business thrives. So a lot of times what we see is, and we'll invite, because networking and having a networking group of peer businesses is very important. And we'll invite businesses to certain places and they'll say, and it's a significant need, but they'll say, I can't get out of my business because it's so busy. But that's when, you know, it's the growing pains of a business, when a business starts getting so busy that you'll have to be creative, either in hiring somebody, hiring a part-time person, or someone else so that you can continue growing that business.
So it sounds like it's multifaceted, from businesses trying to expand. And sometimes you almost go backwards a little bit, I think, before you go forward. And what about new opportunities and new businesses? What do you think is the biggest hurdle is there for, not the ones that are existing trying to grow, but maybe new interest in the greater Bangor area? What do you think our biggest barrier is of having them take action to come to Bangor as a new business?
Space. So a lot of businesses need warehouses. And so we have limited warehouse space. I think that navigation of government, right? Like, we have to be able to answer efficiently and concisely and have a immediate response almost. Follow up. So it's important that we follow up. We had talked last year about a business that was based in Switzerland. We did our due diligence in giving them a tour, and we actually had the parcels of land that was that fit the needs of this business. The business wasn't quite ready, right? So oftentimes a business gets in front of themselves a little too much. And so from a financial standpoint, they were not prepared to move that next step. But again, multifaceted, right? Us being very communicative, very responsive, very efficient, and going beyond the local region, right? There is it's not a business, but an individual I had met last year at a conference, talked about Maine. She loved Maine. She visited Maine a few times as a younger woman. And a year later, she moved to Maine, right? So having those conversations, and that conference was in North Carolina. So making sure that, you know, we're outside of our region recruiting as well.
Thank you. Always planting seeds, right?
Yes, always planting seeds. And then oftentimes it may not be immediate, but you'll see the fruits of our labor eventually.
You mentioned the warehouse space, so I'm assuming that's more of a larger company.
Mm-hmm. A larger company, yeah. So like the sale of 110 Hildreth, that came about because there was a business who needed that space, and it just happened to work out where the current tenant was able to move to a larger space because their business got to a point of new growth. And so we were able, but that was prime real estate for us.
We still have a lot of smaller spaces, storefronts that are available. And are those easier to fill than the larger?
I think those are actually harder to fill, and I think those turn over quicker. So for instance, if you look downtown, I think that those are easier to probably get into, but it's a small business, and it's a small business needing to understand how to sustain a small business, oftentimes new. So I think it's a lot. I mean, just from my experience, and not only in this region, if you need a larger space and you can afford a larger space, that means your company is just a little bit more sophisticated, right? So you can get through those hurdles and you understand, you know, how to run a business and the full facet of operations and that. Smaller business have more risk. Smaller, newer businesses are step into more risk. And oftentimes, their biggest challenge is that they're very passionate about their business. They're very excited, but they don't understand their finances, right? Mm-hmm. How to really be able to be in the now and then look forward into your finances. And I'm sure, we all have seen businesses not survive because they don't know what their numbers are. And they're not familiar enough with marketing and using our social media tools. But I think the number one hurdle for small businesses is really understanding your finances. And the small business owner, finances is not exciting, like, it's not exciting to the average small business owner, right? You have to exercise that discipline to understand it and know it in order for your business to be able to survive.
Where we have some empty lots, especially around the airport. I know in real estate, I don't do a lot of commercial, but I do some. And being friends with commercial brokers, they get a lot of requests for large warehouses too, and we don't have them in the market. And maybe that's something we can look at for an income opportunity for this.
Yeah, we did have a plan to go for EDA funds, federal funds, you know, to be able to build something like that on one of the city properties, but right now, those programs aren't available at the federal level. So we're hoping that program will be brought back so we can try to get funds in the future for that.
I have a couple questions actually, but are there particular businesses you're trying to attract to the area that are a challenge? You're just not able to have you?
Just based on confidential requests, we're not able to talk about those businesses. But I can't talk about those, but we have a lot of local requests for certain franchises and businesses that don't, and those franchises don't necessarily, this region is not necessarily the model for those franchises.
And how much does housing play a role in attracting businesses here? Because that's obviously a big challenge.
Yeah, housing's a huge role. Your business can be very successful, but if you can't house your family and make sure that your family's taken care of, then
And your employees, I mean, if it's a larger business, then
yeah,
I can imagine.
it's a huge hurdle. But I think, you know, Anya had talked about affordable housing and the projects that we are working on. And I think, I mean, nationwide, we understand that that's a huge problem. I think we're all working on it. It's a huge priority.
So I think it's probably a good idea for the city at this point, just because I've seen so many small businesses turn over or just been made empty for so many years now. It's probably in the city's best interest to start a publicly free available finance course that we can give to business owners at some point. If that's really the primary hurdle, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't start investing in that. It's a small pittance to pay in terms of maintaining a business longer. Because the more turnover that we're going to have, the more empty spaces that we're going to have overall. And you also talked about regarding small businesses struggling as well. Online sales and just the internet economy is, I mean, a couple of years ago, I said it was a quarter of the entire world economy. Now it's probably closer to a third or probably more than that now at this point. I think it's also important to educate new business owners coming in any way, shape, or form, whoever is getting ready to do business in Bangor, to also tap into this. If there's some way that they can, they absolutely should, especially in economically tumultuous times that we're in right now. I also had another thought. It's a rather large one, so I'll try to keep it very, very short. We talked about earlier this year regarding, because this is a giant overview of what's in BED, and the airport is part of that. And it's our largest enterprise fund. And you mentioned how it's important to allow people that are at the head of that helm to really get the vision of where their business needs to go. And I think we need to have another conversation about how we can enlighten that vision for our largest enterprise fund to grow. We're obviously not going to have it here unless you want to have the conversation right now. But I think that's a very serious discussion that we need to have. Not now in December. I'm happy to have that in the earlier part of next year, but that should be a pretty significant conversation coming up. Those were all well, not questions, comments I had. Did you have anything you wanted from with either Anna or Brigida?
I appreciate that support. I think the financial class would be fantastic. We just need an army to get our businesses there, right? Once we're there and they understand the value add to their business, then it'll click. But that's the hurdle, getting the businesses there and tearing them away from their current business. So, I mean, we may have to get really creative and bring it, right? Meet them where they are and bring it to their business, like do something that's central to, if we're thinking about the downtown businesses, something central to the area. Where they don't have to think really hard about, oh, I have to go to this other building or to City Hall, where they're coming to us. I think that would be fantastic.
Yes, Councilor Flynn.
I'm just gonna suggest maybe like if you have, you know, an in-person one, but just record it, and then if they can't attend or they miss the session, then they can pick it up at a different time, so then, you know, they can burn off hours. Absolutely.
Question.
Yes, Councilor Mallon.
Do you work closely with the Small Business Administration and the Score Ace people?
They're part of our ecosystem. So in terms of like, we don't work closely with them, but they definitely are on our partner list. So if we have a business that is needing SCORE skill set, the SCORE is phenomenal all across the country. We definitely will refer accordingly.
But that's the finance group, and that's if finance is where we're having our problem, they should be more involved instead of just a referral. They run programs and they run the schooling for finance, I believe. They always did.
And I was gonna say that, like, we don't have to create anything new because the Small Business Development Center does have finance courses. SCORE does have finances courses. It's a matter of bringing the businesses in and working together to get them in some type of central place.
So more economic ambassadors as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, navigators.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilor Beck.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you end up taking up the recording idea, definitely sprinkle in some of that magic like you and Brad did with the Chamber of Commerce Awards.
Yeah.
And that video that was great.
Wow, the little the jokes.
Yeah, it made the attention grab. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do something like that with the Foreign Trade Zone. We have a marketing video that we're working on.
Maybe I forgot, but did we already go over what's coming ahead or?
We did not.
Okay.
So what's coming ahead? Continued support for business retention, growth and attraction, advancement of the Bangor Central Kitchen construction phase. So are you both familiar with the Central Kitchen? So we are very excited because we are very close to construction. We are reviewing bid proposals, and we will be recommending one very soon and that will be on a finance committee meeting very soon. And simultaneously working on the operation model, which is just as important because, as you know, we can't have a building without a keen and very efficient operating model. So we're working on that. That takes a lot of our hours, but it's great work. We are evaluating a new tax increment financing application, so TIF applications. We're in the process of that, preparing more city-owned parcels to be shovel-ready so that we can market them this year. Epstein Commercial is our representation, but we need to make sure, and we're working with them to make sure that these parcels are shovel-ready, especially in the main business enterprise park, which is prime real estate, and to be able to proactively market them. Onboarding our first operator for the Foreign Trade Zone. So I got an update, just so that you know, because it's a federal program. And the actual federal board of the foreign trade zone was shut down when we had our shutdown. So those applications are a little more delayed. But we heard from our client, we have one client, so we've been marketing somewhat the foreign trade zone. And we have one really big international client that is going through that application process. We're anticipating probably second quarter of this year. So that's really exciting as well. Just so that you know, they with the foreign trade zone benefit, this particular company will save upwards of $100,000 a year being a member of our foreign trade zone. And then ongoing collaboration with the regional partners, higher education and industry sectors. I had mentioned before that economic development, there is discipline. There's definitely a specific skill set, but the foundation of economic development is relationship. And we make sure that we build those relationships from the local, national, and international, on the local, national, and international levels. It's extremely important. Any questions?
Yeah. All right. Well, really exciting. And do you want to go over the list of organizations?
Yeah, last on the agenda was Councilor Mallor had asked for a list of organizations that the department supports. So I went through and listed those out with their website so you can kind of see who they are, what they're all about. So that includes code as well as planning and community development.
I did have something I wanted to bring up here because I actually appreciate Councilor Mallor for asking this question. There's an area of economics that municipally speaking we usually tend to unfortunately ignore, and that's the labor of what is required for businesses and economies to actually thrive. I think what, based off of this list, and I'm not saying it's devoid of any labor relations, but I think overall, I would actually like to see more relationships regarding different types of labor activities or labor organizations being implemented, just so that we can better facilitate people that are looking for work, whether it's in the city or if it's in relation to Job Corps, for example, because I know so many people that go through Job Corps, they're doing the right thing, they're working on their resume, they're getting their cover letters out. And in this day and age, when you have fake jobs that get out all the time, there's a labor force that really wants to work. And there's just an untapped amount of people that are really just trying to get out there and support themselves. I think in this current time, it's important for us as a municipality to take on that burden to make sure that we actually manipulate our economy to be not only profitable, but also growing and expansionary, especially during recessionary times. So,
yeah, no, there is an initiative actually that Begita is working on with the Federal Home Loan Bank for workforce development. There's a committee, it's a regional committee that meets that she's been active with. I didn't list that on here because it's not an I tried to stick to organizations that we're members of, you know, that there's some kind of investment, monetary investment from the city on. But at a future agenda, I'll make that an agenda item so Begita can walk you through the work that she does. She has a lot of experience. One of the many reasons why I hired Begita was she has such a great background in workforce development. So we we'll definitely have her come for a future agenda on that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of work on that.
And again, I appreciate you for putting this all together. It really puts things into scope. Councilors, are there any other questions, or Councilor Mallor, do you have a question?
Nope, I'm fine right now.
Any other councilors? Huh? Okay. Well, unless there's anything else, it is 6:26 PM. I think it's probably appropriate to adjourn this meeting, but please stay tuned at home. We have government operations.
Thank you.